Hello again. I know y'all about getting tired of the fat guy and the wife beater, known as Big Les, is talking shit to the world. But there's a lot of stuff that I know that y'all need to know. This message here goes out to the new, recently graduated, ready for the world go-getters. If you just graduated high school, you need to listen to this. All right. Here in Atlanta, I'm gonna get to this in a minute. Here in Atlanta, Georgia, rent is cheap. Believe me, I lived in California. I've lived in Chicago. I'm from Michigan. I've lived in Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, California, Virginia. Oh man, Jacksonville, Florida. You name it, I've been there, and I know the rates and rent over the past decade. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, here's the lowdown. $7.25 an hour is minimum wage. If you're working 140 hours, which is 35 hours a week, because now they have a system where they give the managers 40 hours and they want the managers to multitask and fill in for those 5 hours without giving a regular employee full time. But just for the sake of argument, you do get full time, you'll make 35 extra bucks. Now, 140 hours times $7.25 comes to $1,025 gross. In America, a single person with no children and not married because you just got out of high school. Well, I can't say that about people here in America nowadays. But anyway, at 20% in taxes, that's $205 a deduction in tax, comes up to $820 net for the entire month income. At full time, that's 35 hours. At full time, at 40 hours, is $858. Woo! An extra 35 bucks. Now you got $858 to play with. Out of that, you have to pay rent, utilities, and your way to get back and forth to work, your food, and your laundry. Well, to tell you the truth, you're not even going to get rent because the rules are in Atlanta. It's like the rest of the world is adaptation, but I pick Atlanta because it's the cheapest rent out of all. That's the reason why I'm down here. But you must make 3 times the amount of rent in order to rent. A 1-bedroom here in Atlanta, in Decatur or wherever, it's still Atlanta, is about $425. That is dirt cheap, let me tell you. You can never get an apartment at $425 in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Virginia, in Chicago, and Detroit. Why would you? I mean, the rats are going to be bigger than this table. Believe me, my apartment in Detroit was $310 a month. When I moved in there, there was a busted crack pipe on the floor, some chalk. This is not a lie. This is not a movie. Some chalk outline of the victim and blood splattered on the wall. And the bed that they had in there that was furnished was fleas everywhere. And the rats were probably around 6 to 10 inches long. And in the hallway, it was a busted foam ceiling that the rats used as a tunnel. And it was cork wood that made my door. And I went and got some aluminum to put down there and nailed down to the door so they wouldn't get in. But they came through the walls. And it got in the shower, in the bathroom, the tile was missing on the floor as well as inside the tub. And then in the kitchen area, it was smothered in roaches. It was more roaches than I've ever seen in my life. When I was growing up in my mother's house, we never had roaches. We come from the golden ghetto, the lower middle class. We didn't have bugs. We didn't have critters inside the house. They were outside the house. So that was a new experience for me when I just got out of high school in Detroit. Same thing in Chicago. Here in Atlanta, I paid the same amount of rent, $310, but the apartment had no air conditioning, no ceiling fans, no working windows, and it was like 105 outside every day. It felt like somebody took an iron and ironed the walls and the floors. What I'm getting at is you just do not make enough money on your own. You just don't. Only a few, only the elite, there are a few whose parents have money, they come from middle or upperclassmen, or for somebody who had a couple of certificates or special training underneath their belts, and they can escape the minimum wage system. But you can't. You're not going to make it. And they planned it like this. All the projects, all the lower class housings was bulldozed, destroyed, demolished, and put up high-rise apartments. And these are the rules of getting in, making 3 times the amount of rent. Or the rent is so high now in the new high-rise apartments, minimum wage people will never ever reach that goal. You know how many burrito supremes I have to make in order to get $858 a month? I have to slave. You have to be in there from 8:30 in the morning till 6 p.m. at night. And then here comes the transit system. The MARTA system in Atlanta stops running at 12 o'clock midnight. In a major city with 6.5 million people, the train service and the bus service stops running at midnight. That's ridiculous. You know how much a bus pass costs here? $100 a month. Take $100 off of the $858 at full time and 40 hours. That leaves you $758. How are you going to make rent? How are you going to eat? You better eat where you work. I hope you don't have a secretarial job that you'd be eating a copy machine. This is all designed. We got to figure out a way out of this. And then here, and this is the year of 2012. I had wrote a book last year, 2011, called Raising Hell in 2012. And what it was going through the newspapers and depicting all the lies and innuendos that the media had put in place to cover up for the events that they're trying to pull on extreme poor people, lower middle classmen, and bringing the middle class down to do the jobs that the lower middle class was doing, because the percentage of lower middle classmen are only at 12%. In America right now, 68% of its population is white, 12% is black, and the rest of the percent is other. You know, you see what they did with the Mexicans. You know, they got rid of the low labor Mexicans. They tied them up, put them in private prisons, and the taxpayers paid for their trips home and their stay here. And everybody got paid except us. We're in a lot of trouble, because this summer in 2012, you got the new graduates, you got the kids returning from college, and then you got the existing poor people that have been scratching for hours. It's a battle royale. It's like being in a pit with gladiators out there, trying to get a job at McDonald's or Burger King. 2 years ago, when I had lost my job because the company had cut out a few stores to save some cash, we were sent to different stores and they told us, you will have to fight for your hours. I was like, oh wow, da-da, da-dun, 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 da-dun. I was like, what the hell, man? You telling me after 5 years of employment, now I'm in a fight for my hours? I'm over 40. I'm screwed. I'm screwed, man. Oh, like some young buck is going to come in here and he's going to lift more boxes and put away more cheese and more beef. It's going to be faster on the line than me. He's going to eat me up. Well, it didn't happen because this generation is pretty much damn lazy as hell. They can't get off the BlackBerry and the smartphone in order to take somebody's order. And there's a lot of disrespect, and customers start leaving Their hours go down, and then they give the hours to somebody else. We're in a lot of trouble, though. This is a two-part series, so because I only have 15 minutes to talk shit, but I'm going to give you the solution to this in part two series. So check that out. And let me see. In order to wrap this up, this all goes back. Everything that I'm saying in the past little spots I've been putting on here on YouTube has to go back to all this talk of the Illuminati and all this chit chat talk about Jay-Z and the rappers who sold their souls to become billionaires and millionaires, and they're part of the Illuminati. And I agree with you totally, and I'm going to tell you in part two. So here's part two coming up. But you know, it's 8:04, and the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers is about to tip off in Game 7. So stay tuned for part two, either tonight or tomorrow when I get better lighting in here, because we're running on a cheap budget. But if you're just out of high school, you better get tuned into this. I'm not joking. I'll give you the solution in part two. Peace. This is Big Les saying out.